Keisha Dawson's first day at Lincoln High was nothing like she imagined. She had pictured a fresh start, a chance to leave behind the messy chapters of her past and build something new. But when she stepped through the school's front doors, the noise of hundreds of students swirled around her like a storm. The weight of being the new girl settled heavily on her shoulders. She adjusted the strap of her backpack, scanning the crowded hallway. Faces blurred past, some curious, some indifferent, and a few that barely concealed judgment. Keisha had always been noticed, but this felt different. Here, she was an outsider, the only black girl in a sea of unfamiliar faces. She took a deep breath and reminded herself why she was here. Cheerleading had been her sanctuary back in Albuquerque. It was where she felt strong, confident, and in control. Her flips and stunts were more than just routines. They were her way of telling the world that she belonged. So, when she saw the cheerleading tryouts posted on the bulletin board, she knew she had to go for it. The gym buzzed with energy that afternoon as girls stretched, practiced, and whispered in tight circles. Keisha found a spot near the back and began warming up. Her heart pounded, not from nerves, but from the thrill of being back where she belonged. Coach Thompson blew the whistle, signaling everyone to line up. "Show me what you've got," she said, her eyes sharp and expectant. Keisha moved through the routine she'd practiced 1,000 times, her jumps high, landings clean, and her smile steady. She caught the eyes of a few girls who nodded in approval. But then, from the corner of the gym, two figures watched with something closer to disdain than interest. Trent Holloway and Dax Mercer, the varsity basketball team's stars, were used to being the center of attention on and off the court. They weren't about to let a new cheerleader, especially one who didn't fit their usual mold, slip under their radar. After tryouts, Trent swaggered over to Keisha as she gathered her things. "Hey, new girl," he said, flashing a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You think you can keep up with us?" Keisha met his gaze steadily, her voice firm. "I'm not here to keep up. I'm here to do my best." Dax chuckled behind Trent. "Bold words. We'll see how long that confidence lasts." Keisha shrugged off their taunts, walking away, but she could feel their eyes burning into her back. It wasn't just a challenge, it was a warning. The next few days were a blur of classes, practice, and whispered conversations. Keisha noticed the way Trent and Dax's group would smirk when she passed by. She heard snatches of their conversations mocking her routines, questioning her place on the team. The school wasn't as welcoming as she'd hoped. One afternoon, as she sat alone on the bleachers after practice, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her dad. "Hey, baby girl, how's the first week?" Keisha smiled, typing back quickly, "It's okay. Tougher than I thought." Malik's reply came immediately. "Remember, you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone dim your light." His words were a balm, but they also reminded her of the complicated life waiting for her back in Albuquerque. Malik wasn't just any dada, was a man with a reputation that stretched far beyond the city limits. Known to some as King Dawson, Keisha had grown up with stories about him, stories she tried to keep at arm's length. But here, at this new school, she just wanted to be Keisha. The girl who loved cheerleading, wanted friends, wanted to belong. But it became clear that Trent and Dax weren't going to let her do that easily. The subtle glances turned into pointed comments. The whispers grew louder, and the feeling of being watched didn't fade. One afternoon, Keisha caught Trent and Dax laughing as they looked at her phone from across the hallway. She hurried away, her heart pounding, but she knew deep down that this was only the beginning of something that wasn't good. It wasn't long before their harassment began to escalate. At cheer practice, Keisha had made the team, a small victory that briefly lifted her spirits. But as she walked into the gym, she felt the shift in the room. Trent, Dax, and their crew had made it their personal mission to make her life miserable. The coach, a well-meaning but oblivious woman named Mrs. DeVy's son, was focused on preparing the squad for the upcoming regional competition, pushing them hard to perfect their routines. But amidst the intensity of the practice, the subtle digs and underhanded tactics began. One day, during a particularly challenging stunt, Dax accidentally bumped into Keisha, throwing her off balance. She landed awkwardly, twisting her ankle. "Oops, sorry," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "Didn't see you there." Keisha bit back a sharp retort and limped to the sidelines. She iced her ankle, trying to ignore the snickers from Trent and his friends as practice continued. It didn't stop there. Keisha's water bottle mysteriously disappeared, replaced with a bottle of foul-smelling liquid. Her gym bag was emptied and scattered across the floor. And during a break, she overheard Trent and Dax spreading rumors about her to the other cheerleaders. "Did you hear about Keisha's old school?" Trent said loudly enough for Keisha to hear. "Apparently, she got kicked off the cheer team for causing trouble." Dax added, "Yeah, something about stealing money from the fundraising account." Keisha's cheeks burned with anger. The rumors were completely false. She hadn't left Albuquerque for any reason like Thatched left to escape her father's shadow, not because of anything she had done wrong. But Trent and Dax didn't care about the truth. They were determined to paint her as an outsider, someone who didn't belong. Keisha confronted them after practice. Her voice trembled with rage. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded. "What did I ever do to you?" Trent shrugged, his eyes cold. "We're just HVYing a little fun. You need to learn to take a joke," he said. Dax added, "Maybe if you weren't so desperate for attention, we'd leave you alone." Keisha wanted to lash out, to fight back against their cruel words, but she knew that wouldn't solve anything. They were trying to provoke her, trying to make her lose control. She turned and walked away, refusing to give them the satisfaction. As she walked home that evening, the weight of the day settled heavily on her shoulders. She thought about her dad, the sacrifices he'd made to give her a better life, and she knew she couldn't let Trent and Dax ruin everything. She had to find a way to stand up to them. That night, Keisha practiced her routines relentlessly. She pushed herself harder, determined to show Trent and Dax that she wasn't going to be bullied into submission. She tried to make friends with the other girls on the team, offering support and encouragement. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Trent and Dax were always lurking in the shadows, waiting for her to slip up. One evening, while practicing her tumbling passes in her backyard, Keisha's neighbor, Mrs. Ramirez, called out to her from across the fence. "You've got a lot of fire in you, Keisha," she said, smiling warmly. "Don't let anyone put it out." Mrs. Ramirez's words gave Keisha a spark of hope. She realized she wasn't alone. There were people who believed in her, who saw her strength. She just had to find a way to tap into it. But as Keisha prepared to face her tormentors, she had no idea that their actions were about to cross a line, setting in motion a chain of events that would change her life forever. The atmosphere in the locker room had become unbearable. What had once been a place of camaraderie and team spirit was now a battleground, with Keisha as the primary target. The pranks escalated. Her gym shoes would go missing, only to reappear soaking wet or filled with dirt. Her cheer uniform would be mysteriously altered, leaving her with ill-fitting clothes that drew snickers from the other girls. Her carefully packed lunch would be replaced with bizarre and disgusting concoctions. But the real damage was being done through whispers and rumors carefully crafted to undermine her confidence and isolate her from the team. One day, Keisha walked into the locker room to find her name scrawled across the mirror in bright red lipstick, accompanied by crude and offensive slurs. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to wipe away the hateful words. "Having a bad day, Keisha?" Trent said, sauntering into the room with Dax by his side. "Maybe you should just quit. Save yourself the embarrassment." Keisha refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break down. She straightened her shoulders and met Trent's gaze with a defiance she didn't feel. "I'm not going anywhere," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The locker room became a breeding ground for paranoia and mistrust. Keisha couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every move she made was scrutinized and judged. She started avoiding the locker room whenever possible, changing in the bathroom, or even skipping practice altogether. The constant stress and anxiety took a toll on her performance. Her jumps lacked their usual height. Her landings were shaky, and her routines were filled with mistakes. Mrs. DeVy's son, growing increasingly frustrated, began to single Keisha out for criticism. "Keisha, you need to focus," she said sharply during one practice. "You're letting the team down." Keisha's eyes welled with tears, but she bit back a response. She knew that Mrs. DeVy's son didn't understand what was happening, that she was blind to the bullying that was tearing the team apart. One afternoon, Keisha was scrolling through social media when she stumbled upon a fake profile created in her name. The profile was filled with embarrassing photos and fabricated stories designed to humiliate her and ruin her reputation. The final straw came during a pep rally before a big basketball game. As Keisha and the cheerleaders took to the stage, someone released a swarm of crickets from the rafters. The crickets landed on the cheerleaders, causing chaos and panic. Keisha, already on edge, froze in terror as the crickets swarmed around her. Trent and Dax pointed and laughed, their faces contorted with glee. Keisha felt a wave of humiliation wash over her. She couldn't take it anymore. She ran off the stage, tears streaming down her face, and fled the gym. She didn't stop running until she reached home, where she collapsed on her bed in a sobbing mess. That night, as Keisha stared at her reflection in the mirror, she barely recognized the girl staring back at her. The confident, determined cheerleader had been replaced by someone broken and defeated. But as she thought about everything, something flickered inside her. Anger, a resolve to fight back. She realized she couldn't let Trent and Dax win. She had to find a way to reclaim her life and her dignity. And just as she was about to make that decision, the phone buzzed. It was her father, Malik. "How's school today?" he asked, his voice warm and familiar through the phone. Keisha sniffled, trying to compose herself. "It's okay, Malik. It's hard." But Malik could sense the distress in her voice. "What's wrong, baby girl?" Keisha hesitated before the words spilled out about Trent and Dax, about the pranks, the rumors, the humiliation. Malik's voice grew colder as he listened, and she knew that King Dawson, the notorious figure who commanded respect and fear, was about to make his move. "Those boys are bullying you?" Malik asked. Keisha's heart sank. "It's just high school stuff, Dad. I can handle it." "No." Malik's voice was low, dangerous. "You shouldn't have to handle it. No one should go through that." Keisha hesitated, knowing what Malik was capable of. "Dad, please don't. Don't do anything crazy." "I'm going to take care of this," Malik said. "Those boys won't bother you again." Keisha begged him to stay away. But Malik, ever the protector, was determined to take matters into his own hands. And the consequences of his actions would unfold in ways that neither Keisha nor her tormentors could ever predict.